I've counted the number of steps from my office to the restroom because I'm afraid that I'm not going to make it to the restroom in time. I first experienced symptoms in October. I experienced a lot of urgency and some pain during urination. I think the big shock to me was when you walk in the waiting room and you are by far the youngest patient there. They tested me to see if I had kidney stones. They checked my prostate. There were many steps along the way. Eventually, they set me up for a CT urogram, and that CT urogram revealed some concerns, and my urologist decided to biopsy me. You almost pull out of your body, like you back out of the scene and everything seems like far away. It was so shocking. I remember a specific weekend in October of 2023, and I was experiencing extreme pain after urination, and I was experiencing a lot of urgency to the point where when I was talking to someone in the middle of a sentence, I'd say, hold on, I'll be right back, and I'd have to run to the restroom. I couldn't even wait for them to get to a pausing point in a story they were telling me. And so I thought that was really unusual. I first noticed it kind of over a weekend, and I happened to have an appointment with my primary care physician that following Tuesday. And so when I went in, I said, this is what I've been experiencing, and this is really unusual. So what do you recommend? And they said, I think you need to see a urologist. I mean, my wife and I have kind of thought back over the course of things. And I mean, kind of all my life, I've been the person that on the road trip, I'm like, hey guys, I got to go to the bathroom. Everybody's like, oh my God, already? So I was always that guy who kind of had to go to the bathroom before anybody else really needed to. So my wife, was wondering, were there signs of this earlier on with your frequency and your need to urinate more often than others? Was that an early sign that we missed? But from what I understand, for most people, it's blood in the urine is the first thing they noticed. And I got to that point later, but in October, I didn't have that issue. That came along, throughout the rest of the time as we're getting diagnosed and going through tests. So I did know what a urologist was, but I think the big shock to me was when you walk in the waiting room and you are by far the youngest patient there. Everyone looks like they are your parents or your grandparents in the waiting room. And so to me, I was like, oh my gosh, like what is going on with me? At my age, I shouldn't be here. I didn't feel like I fit. That was kind of my first impression. I didn't think it was cancer, but secondly, I just thought that, whatever the weight is would be normal to get in to see a urologist. I mean, they had me do a urinalysis. They really didn't see anything from that. And then they wanted to set me up for a CT scan. And then they did a couple of other things. They also did a digital exam for prostate, and ruled that out. And at that point I was kind of like, okay, because that's what that was what I was thinking it could possibly be. By the end of November, I was having a CT scan, and the CT scan came back with a suspicious spot that they wanted to examine further. The next in-office appointment, the doctor did a cystoscopy, which was the first one of those I'd ever had, and that was quite a shocking experience right there in the exam room. Go ahead, put on this robe, and here we go. And I had no idea what was really happening. And then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, they're going through my urethra. So he saw something there that he wanted to examine further. So then he scheduled me for a TURBT. And so now we're into December with a TURBT. They went in, they scraped the spot, and did and got a biopsy. The thing now with all medical care is everybody has a portal. And so you get the upload of the results in the portal. And I could not understand half of the words in that report, but the one word I recognized and knew what it meant was carcinoma. And that word was in there. That report came out like maybe a day or two before the Christmas break started. So you're there at the end of the semester wrapping things up, ready to go for your 2-week break right before Christmas, and you see the word carcinoma. And you have they had a doctor's appointment at the time set up for like middle of January to follow up on the TURBT. And you're like, oh great, they're going to go on a 2-week break. I don't know what this really is. And now I've got to wait. You start Googling stuff. There's in situ, there's high grade, there's papillary, there's urothelial, like all these. I know them all now, but I didn't know any of these words. I was lucky that I've got a few healthcare professionals in my family. So I have a cousin whose husband is a general practice doctor out of town, and so I sent him the report. And that's not urology isn't his lane, but he sort of helped walk me through some of the things. Whenever I read anything in the portal, whether it's my blood work or anything like that, I always say, I really want to talk to the doctor. You had to go through the Christmas holiday still and smile for pictures, and we weren't really telling anyone what was going on. It was just my wife and I pretty much carrying at that point, carrying the message and knowing what's going on and hoping for the best. But we got to that appointment January 2nd, and that's when we finally had someone tell me, yes, you have cancer. It's like one of those like movie scenes where like you almost pull out of your body, like you back out of the scene and everything seems like far away. It was so shocking. And even my doctor himself was like, I'm kind of shocked, because he said, all my patients are like in their 70s and 80s. You're young. So he's like, I don't understand this. So we went into that appointment. We read it. We talked to a couple of family members that were in the healthcare profession. And we said, we really want to get a second opinion on this. When we go in there, we're going to tell that doctor that we want a second opinion. And so surprisingly, the doctor said, you know what? I really want to send you to the cancer center, because the location of your cancer and what's going on, it's really, I do a lot of work. I do surgeries, but he said, this is a little bit beyond my scope. And I would like you to go see another doctor that can treat you more effectively. And, I'm so thankful that he did that. We call the cancer center in the beginning of January 3rd, January 2nd, the appointment, we're on the phone. Let's get an appointment. And they're like, yeah, we'll see you like February, like in the 20s of February. And we're like, oh my gosh, we can't wait that long. And so we took the appointment. We took what they gave. It was the doctor that our urologist said, I would really like you to see this doctor at the cancer center. She always describes there was this one day, because the symptoms continued beyond October all the way through now into January. And there was one day that I called her on the way home from work, and I said, hun, I don't know how much longer I can do this, because I'm going to the bathroom like 10 times a day. And I have to run parent conferences, and I have to, I'm doing things and interacting with people, and I just can't get up. About Christmas time, the results came back, and we found out that I did indeed have bladder cancer. I said, I've counted the number of steps from my office to the restroom, because I'm afraid that I'm not going to make it to the restroom in time. And then to wet yourself in a high school with a bunch of high school kids, there were so many layers to this. She's like, I'm going to do something. I'm going to call them back. And so she called back. She said, what can we do to my husband's appointment up? And they said, call every day. And she's like, what? Like, are you certain? And they said, this is your job. You call every day, and we'll let you know if there's a cancellation where we can move you in. And so she did that. She saw how much I was hurting, and she had to step up. So we got in with our doctor and got in an appointment at the cancer center. The resources are just incredible. The care team is awesome. They said we have a portal. Anything you want to ask, you ask, we will answer. And sure enough, they did. So one of the things about my diagnosis, the tumor was growing in a diverticulum in my bladder. So I have a diverticular bladder, and that was what made it unusual for the original urologist. A diverticulum, like people that have diverticulitis, it's a pocket that grows in your digestive system. And so the diverticulum was growing on my bladder, and the cancer was in the diverticulum. So the thought that doctor had was, we're going to do two things. We're going to give you BCG treatment, and then we're going to do a surgery to remove that diverticulum and put your bladder back together. Hello, bladder cancer warriors. Today marks 1 year since I began my BCG treatments. Don't know what order I'm going to do that in. I got to go in and look at it and see what things are going to look like. But these are the two things that we're going to do. And it kind of wasn't, there wasn't any question of like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? It was like, this is what we're going to do. And at that point, you're like, well, you're the expert. So if you say that's what I got to do, I'm going to do it. Every step of the way. She's amazing. She held it together, at least outwardly. I know it was a lot for both of us to process internally. She's the type where she dives into what she can control. So, I mean, there were so many visits and doctor's appointments, and every time you have to fill out all this paperwork, she's like, I got it. I'll fill out the paperwork. I think it was something that just really kept her busy. It was something that she knew she could do, and she knew that she was moving the ball down the field for me. But then she became her superpower was in getting appointments moved up. You don't have to be rude about it. You don't have to be forward about it. You don't have to be direct about it. But at the same time, you do have to advocate for yourself, or in my case, have an advocate in your corner that's going to come. And so many people that I interact with that have bladder cancer, oftentimes I'm interacting with a person that says my father has bladder cancer, my mother has bladder cancer, and I always write back, I'm so glad they have you, because you really need a second person. I couldn't imagine going through this on my own. And my wife was amazing, and I give her all the kudos, but we also had a village around us of family and friends and people from the education profession in our area that also stepped up to help us in all kinds of different ways. But you have to speak up for yourself, because there isn't anybody else to. It's easy to become a number to the cancer center when there's hundreds of people, and you have to make that personal connection and have them see you as a person and make sure that you are reaching out to advocate for yourself. We always went in. Our doctor was always busy because he had patients lined up and he was just going. So every appointment, we went in with a list of questions. And, as he's scrubbing out after he, works with me, he says, okay, so, and whoa, hold on, doctor. We got a few questions. We got 5 questions here. And we made sure we paused and we answered those questions and got satisfactory answers that we could comprehend, because it moves fast when you're in the room. Well, first of all, being at the cancer center, it's like, I know I'm in great hands. Like I can tell that everybody here knows what they're talking about. And it was the confidence of my doctor. He projected confidence that we can do this. This is what we're going to do. This is the plan. And I bought into that confidence.